Hello. It's been a while since I've done a little extra impromptu video, so happy Saturday or Sunday as the case may be. I showered and then put my pajamas back on, and I am in my kitchen, so it's possible that people might come out and because they don't know I was planning this video. But I feel excited about this idea, so I just decided to jump on here and chat with you this morning about it. Specifically, I'm going to try to be quickish, and but this morning I want to encourage you to use this weekend to look for ways to leverage your natural strengths and then to find your way forward. So whatever the circumstances of your life, good, bad, otherwise, I think that we can easily dismiss that we all have these natural and acquired strengths that we can use it's like a wisdom we've developed that we often fail to acknowledge, and we can use our strengths to actually find a path forward. So I just got off of a call with a girlfriend, and I was feeling I shared this with her, and anyway, I want to tell you, and so I had yesterday this flash of insight that in the middle of a panic attack, actually, and it was also sparked by that I shared a podcast episode in the group yesterday on polyvagal theory, and I know not everybody will be interested in diving into polyvagal theory or research around trauma. I'm very motivated to because of my life experience this past year in particular. But the reason I shared that video though was because they applied information to COVID. So it's practical in that sense. But anyways, it was really interesting because as you think about our natural, what we do naturally, what our bodies do when we're afraid, when we are faced with uncertainty, we tend to kind of shut down and we start going towards safety. We get triggered and we want safety in our bodies and our minds. So, and often we judge this. We judge who we are. We judge how we are in this world. We judge our numbing tendencies. We judge just being fully human in a messy world. We judge our personality, which is really just our learned way of feeling safe in the world and showing up in the world and getting our needs met. And it's the judgment that causes the pain, right? So just like COVID, the trauma around that is less about the virus, fear of the virus. It's more about our fear of uncertainty. Because as human beings, we are wired to seek safety and security. And so, but there's nothing bad about being human in a messy world. And so the more I think that we all can learn to release the judgment around where we are, how we are, who we are, then we can start to awaken to all the cool skills and strengths and abilities that we already have to carve a path forward, even through uncertainty. Because truthfully, we've never really been in control of much of life anyway, but there are things that we can do to help our bodies, our nervous systems, our minds, to feel more prepared and more like to have that sense of agency so that we don't get so hyper triggered and afraid. So, but coming back to that sort of flash of insight I had, so I'm a very body-centered person. I feel deeply. I know where anxiety lives in my body. I'm a highly sensitive person. I don't like bras or shoes. I need to ground myself. I love texture and scent. And I naturally, in dealing with trauma in my life, I've been naturally, using a lot of this body-centered wisdom and intuition to ground myself and to stay whole. It doesn't mean that immediately eradicates the suffering or the struggle. So I'm in pain. I've lost my child. My body, I have PTSD. Like, it's like this physical experience, this lived experience doesn't magically leave because I identify my strengths, right? But what happens is I am able to leverage those strengths to stay rooted, to stay present, to stay in a place of self-compassion as I move through this lived experience. And I think this will be potentially really beneficial for you. So I'll give you an example of how this is showing up for me, and then hopefully you can kind of extrapolate and try to start thinking about, how might this apply to me? And then if you're interested in this conversation, we can go deeper. So one of the realities of what's happening in my body right now is that I have PTSD, I have panic attacks, and the panic attacks have been almost every day. I have some days without, and I'm getting better and that, but and I'm using all sorts of therapies and modalities to care for myself well, and but what it feels like in my body. So I want to leverage my strengths. So I know that I'm a very gut-led, body-centered person, and so I can leverage that natural part of my wiring by noticing what's happening in my body when I'm triggered. So for me right now, any kind of adrenaline can send me into panic. So it could be good things. Like, I love my work, and sometimes when I'm working, I feel this excitement that can trigger me to panic. It's not just negative things. So I'm noticing what's happening in my body. So, okay, there's these stress hormones, and what happens is, as soon as adrenaline starts pumping, it could be cortisol, adrenaline, a combination, my body is interpreting it as danger. And it wants to move me back into a place of safety and security. But what I'm noticing now is, like, before the panic, my body feels like a bundle of energy. It's like I have this, like, it's just like a tremendous amount of energy that needs to be discharged. And so my flash of insight yesterday was, Krista, why don't you use your, the strengths you already possess, use that as your way forward. And of course, I already do this work with my clients, right? I'm always encouraging them, identify your strengths, and then we're going to leverage that. We're going to harness that to face whatever challenge or whatever, growth we seek or whatever. So I already do that with other people, but it occurred, like, it was like this deeper bit of insight yesterday on a personal level. And I was thinking about how, like, right now so again, I'm sorry, I'm using a personal example to illustrate, but this isn't about me. I want this to be about you too. So, if you want to share examples or whatever, ask for support, do that. But the concept here is, like, how, like, you can clean oil with oil, or in homeopathy, or even like, what's it called again? Like, exposure therapy, like for allergies or for anxiety, different things, we can use exposure therapy sometimes. So it's like meets like, and sometimes it seems illogical. It's like, well, if I'm hyper reactive to this thing, why would I do more of this thing? But I was reminded yesterday that our bodies are for us. They are not against us. So when we are in emotional, we're struggling emotionally, or we're struggling with an addictive behavior or whatever is going on, we can, if we pause and we kind of look for, how can I harness my strengths, we might actually be surprised that we can meet like with like. So my body is hyper reactive, and it might seem counterintuitive to then use my body even more. We might think, I should avoid, anything that gets my body moving. But actually, I was reminded yesterday that actually there's this power that happens when we bring, so I guess there's two maybe key ideas here, but one is like this sort of like, meet this with more of this sort of, and use that wisdom. So in my case, it's like this body wisdom that I have naturally, bring more of that to meet this hyper reactivity in my body. And so it's going to look different for you. You know, it might be that you're judging right now. You think, oh, my brain is always spinning. And maybe you're like, you live very much in your head center. And you might think, oh, so what I would invite you to do is consider something like, well, how can you leverage this strength that already exists in your life? You've got this acquired wisdom. How can you use that to meet what's happening in here and find a path forward? How can you, instead of avoiding, shaming, judging, running from, you know, how you're wired, what if you harness that to compassionately meet the need in your life? So in my case, the body stuff, it's like I'm experimenting with, so I'm going to experiment more with this. But when I naturally allow that energy to discharge, I need to shake it out. I might like look a little hyperactive because I feel hyperactive. I've got all this stuff that needs to come out. I might stretch. I might like open up my chest instead of like closing in a fearful stance. I might like need to wiggle. So you'll see this because in more of I used to work a lot with a standing desk. And then this past year or so, I've moved away from that, but I need to come back to it. And so you might see me like using self-soothing techniques, right? Like I might move my body, I might need to shake it out a little bit, I might kind of wiggle my legs, but it allows me to stay present. And all I'm doing is using my natural wiring for myself. So I'm working with my natural wiring, not against it. Okay. I hope that made sense. I do feel like it's kind of this big idea. And, but if you're interested and curious, I would happily help you figure out some ideas, like kind of brainstorm, ooh, well, you know, how could we apply this to your life, your situation, whatever. So anyway, let me know if you're interested in going further, and otherwise have a wonderful weekend. See you guys.